It seems like during the last administration in the UK, the environment and carbon was a major driver in our energy system, and costs and security of supply played second fiddle. In the last few years, that seems to have shifted, and it now seems that cost is the main driver, and that is sort of driving us towards increased use of gas. I'm not convinced that a gas-heavy grid in a decade or two's time is compatible with our sort of long-range carbon targets. Making decisions about the future is very difficult. The uncertainties are many and they are significant. We don't know how the gas supply is going to evolve. We don't know how significant shale gas will be in Europe, whether America will become a gas exporter, how will demand in the East affect supplies from Russia or supplies available to Europe via LNG. And we do have little confidence in price projections. Anyone studying this area for the last decade will sort of have noticed how the prices we have now are not what were projected 5 or 10 years ago. In the UK, there's significant uncertainty remaining about the decommission schedule of our nuclear fleet, whether further extensions will be granted, when or even whether new nuclear builds will come online in the UK. And building energy infrastructure is hugely financially intensive, and we don't know the state of financing and how much financing is going to cost going forward. And there's also uncertainty about policy. How is energy policy going to change? We need stability, which is sort of longer than the political horizon to make some of these decisions. And technology, we heard yesterday about CCS. I think there are still significant questions about the technological and especially the economic viability of large-scale CCS. So I hope today's debate towards the end of the day will help address some of these questions and hope provide some clarity, although I'm certain we won't answer any of them definitively. My personal opinion is that not enough attention has been paid to the demand side of our electricity system. It still feels to me like we're operating a fairly dumb electricity grid, where demand is largely ignorant of instantaneous costs of generation and instantaneous carbon intensity of generation. There doesn't seem to be enough information flowing in the grid. So I'd like to think that the challenge of keeping the lights on is something that should be borne equally by the supply side and the demand side, where at the moment it seems to be the supply side's problem of meeting whatever demand feels like demanding. So I'll just finish with this simple chart. It shows electricity demand for 2 weeks in the United Kingdom, a week in January and a week in August. There's not a huge amount of difference between the middle of winter and the middle of summer. I guess that suggests, in the UK at least, we don't use a lot of electricity for heating. There's a larger daily cycle in winter, which you'd expect. But the main sort of point I'd like to make is the 23 gigawatts demand at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. It just strikes me as an awful lot. What are we doing? What are we consuming as a base load in this country at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning? If we could find a way to reduce that by a gigawatt, 5 gigawatts, 10 gigawatts, that pays huge dividends throughout the whole year. And to me, it just makes the whole energy supply system simpler to manage if we can bring down that background level. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce our keynote for today, Dr. Jeremy Leggett. He studied, his education background is in geology. He studied at Oxford. I believe he studied there whilst our yesterday's keynote, Ron Oxborough, was teaching there. He went on to teach at the Royal School of Mines, now Imperial College, I believe. His day job, he works at Solar Century, founder and non-executive chairman of Solar Century, one of the UK's largest designers and installers of solar power. You could say he's put his money where his mouth is. He's also founder and chairman of Solar Aid, which is a rapidly expanding charity which is involved in deploying solar solutions into rural Africa, where it can make a real difference. Going a little bit further back, he was the founding director of the world's first private equity fund in renewable energy in the UK. He's also advised the government on renewable energy and authored 2 books, both of which I've read, both of which I can recommend, Carbon War and Half Gun. So without any further ado, I'd like you to put your hands together and welcome Dr. Jeremy Leggett.